We don't have a very big agenda today, but we do have the normal order of business in front of us. Number one is establishing a quorum and looking up and down the dais. We do have a quorum today. Disposition of the April 7th meeting minutes for 2022. Any comments or corrections that anybody sees that needs to take place within the minutes?
No, I read it.
Hearing none, can I get a motion to adopt the April 7th minutes?
I motion to adopt the minutes.
Second.
And a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
Abstain.
And one abstain. Thank you, Director Stone. Moving on, we don't have any cases today, but we do have a communication. The communication is Title 21, and it is for a lot split at, interesting address, 0 Terrell Road in Canaan Township. Director or Planner Paul Logue, any communication on that, or?
I can touch base on this a little bit, Mayor, and I believe the applicant is present as well. And he can correct me on anything I have wrong here, but my understanding of this situation is there was an easement that was drawn up, that's in your documents here, to access this property shown on page 2 of your packet there, the yellow parcel. It's about looks like about 20 acres. That 20-acre parcel has historically been continuous and contiguous with the property that fronts on Terrell, owned by the minor trust. In 2019, that easement was recorded to give access to that 20 acres. However, the easement was never reviewed by the city's planning commission, which is required to do for new easements within 3 miles under subdivision regulations. How it got recorded, don't know. But we don't know anything. From our end, we don't know anything about that. I believe the attorney must have sent it, if somebody at the county recorded it. I'll assume it's just a human error situation. I believe that the owner of that back property is now interested in selling it, and Mr. Howdeshell is with the title company that is trying to work on getting clear title for a real estate transaction, and the title agency caught that this easement was never approved by the subdivision regulation authority. And so they reached out to us. We've been talking with them off and on for probably about 6 weeks or maybe 2 months to try to get this straightened out. And David Riggs, of course, our co-director, is not present this afternoon, but David's been working closely with them to try to get this cleaned up. And I know there's a memo attached from David, and I believe Mr. Howdeshell is present, can probably speak in a little bit more detail and correct me on what I got wrong here.
Okay. Mr. Howdeshell, if you do want to speak to us, if you would, raise your right hand. Everything you say before this body today is faithful and honest to the best of your knowledge.
Yes, sir.
Okay. If you would like to go to the podium and speak on this property, give you.
So yes, as everything was stated, I think was very concise and correct. I'm basically here today. I've been working with Mr. Riggs. He's given me some forms. Honestly, I'm just kind of stumbling through because it's kind of an odd situation, so I'm just here to kind of make sure, see if we can get this through, get it done, and correct this time. We had handled the transaction in 2019. There was outside counsel, prepared the easement. We worked with the county. We thought everything kind of went through. And then, as he said, this time it popped up that that probably, skirted you guys and wasn't done correctly. But now we have this 20-acre piece with an easement that we've kind of broken that contiguous language, and we're either kind of stuck, forcing them to put that back together, in one way, or kind of moving forward here. But so I mean, taking your guys' lead here, we're kind of the direction, but just since it's a little bit different than kind of jumped ahead in the process. Just whatever you guys would prefer at this point. I just want to make sure we're doing it correctly and following all policy and procedure for you.
Thank you. Director Riggs, do you want to speak to this?
Yes, thank you, Mayor.
This project, it's outside of the city, within the 3-mile jurisdiction limits, so our zoning code kicks in. And the way it's described right now, that this would be a major subdivision, even though it's just a lot split of one lot. So they're proposing a easement to get access to this landlocked parcel. And you can see in the application, there's a whole bunch of stuff that they'd have to do to submit this correctly. We're suggesting maybe that we waive that and treat this more like a minor subdivision.
And it's 20 acres of land, and it certainly does beg the question, would you seek to split this further, or?
I'm not sure. So we handled the one where it's, I think, Mr. Hammer, the current owner, has it, and then we're handling the sale. I know it's a younger gentleman and his aunt kind of buying it.
Yeah,
Beyond that, I really don't know, intentions or anything like that. I think he was looking for a nice, lot of land, but yeah, I don't want to misspeak and, I don't know the future plans.
Questions from the commission?
This is east, correct? This is east of the city?
Southeast, yeah.
Southeast.
Southeast, and the comprehensive plan, talks about not growing further in that direction, as the city of Athens specifically. Because, number one, floodplain, although I think this is probably out of floodplain. And then number two, it's downstream from a wastewater plant. So, as we look to grow the city over ensuing years, the likelihood of this coming into the city itself is pretty low.
I believe Terrell Road is not generally maintained. It's maintained on some level, but it's still a pretty dusty, gravelly road. Anybody's been on that in a while.
Can someone give me an idea? I know Terrell Road, and I'm just trying to place where this property is. Is it on the flat portion closer to 50, or is it closer to 25?
I'm not sure. I have a zoomed in map, but beyond that.
No, that wouldn't help.
gonna say,
I'd need
I
to
don't
zoom
have
the other
much.
way.
If I recall, it was in between. It's kind of like sort of in the middle of nowhere. There's a couple of houses out there, but it's in between that area that you're talking about.
Where the steep hill is
Yes.
when you're climbing
Yes.
out of, up Terrell Road.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so again, I don't know whether that's. I can look it up.
The purpose of our major subdivision regulations is ultimately to ensure that number one, land is usable in the long term after splits have occurred, whether those splits be individual lots or easements or what have you. And number two, infrastructure built to support that land is appropriate, and that then can be taken over by a public agency or public entity to maintain and operate while that land is used. In this particular case, it really appears as though none of that is necessary. This is a situation where there's happened to be a landlocked parcel that an easement ends up being needed to access it from a public road, and it's not a situation where we're developing a bunch of lots to sell, or where the owner is developing a bunch of lots to sell as individual home lots. That then would create a problem for a public agency, whether it be the city or the township, to maintain because the subdivision regulations that exist weren't followed. There you go. That's south of the river on kind of the backside of that.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Just as it's climbing up. Yep.
So
Sorry to interrupt.
no, you're right on. So I think that it's reasonable to not require. So it's reasonable to not require us to treat this as a major subdivision.
Okay.
Any other thoughts?
No, and it is a communication, so as this moves forward, it'll come up as a case
Okay.
in 2 weeks, and at that point, we will have a decision for you in terms of treating it as a minor lot split. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you. All right. Reports from city planner.
Good afternoon, everyone. Just two updates this afternoon. Our Vista intern, Jacob Kemp, he and I are continuing to work on the solar information. I hope to have some of that for you at the first regular meeting in May. Just do a quick presentation or PowerPoint and some Q&A about that. Other item, just to note right now, we are working, I'm working on a grant application to ODOT right now, asking for, they have a planning grant program for active transportation plans for communities around the state, that they will provide a contractor to do that for us. I'm submitting an application, basically asking if we can get an update of our current bicycle and pedestrian plan through that. So application's due tomorrow. Don't know if we'll receive it or not, but I'm gonna ask for it, so.
And the request is for how much?
They handle the consulting, et cetera, so they just provide the service, so there's no funds to the city, it's not there's no cash transaction going on, they just they're gonna choose about 15 communities around the state to give funding to, and provide planning services, rather.
Great,
Yeah,
thank you.
you're welcome.
Director Riggs.
Would like to note to the board that WODA, the development that's occurring on 682 Phase 3 and 4, they wanted to present and then they asked for another delay. Don't know exactly the reason for that, but they've asked for to give them some more time before they submit Phase 3 and 4 of this development that they're preparing. And secondly, Cornerstone Development in the UE. They're on hold until we can get the easement taken care of for their utilities, and that's all I have.
Great, thank you. Opportunity for citizens to speak, or do you want to speak to that?
Can I ask a question?
Sure you can. Yes, you can, Rob.
Rob Delac, live on 124 Morris Avenue here in the city, just representing myself officially at least. So, Paul, that's great news about trying to get money for transportation planning for to update the bike ped master plan. It's something that the ad hoc pedestrian, the city council's ad hoc pedestrian advisory accessibility, get the words right, committee has been discussing. So we've been looking at that. Currently, I am mapping the recommendations they made just for pedestrians, and then trying to do an assessment of what was actually accomplished since that was written, which just initially it looks like a lot more than I thought when I was trying to catalog it. So I'll have some results for the committee for that, and I'll share that with others here if you're interested in that information once I start getting that together.
Excuse me, Mr. Fleck, so you mean to say that we had a plan and we followed the plan and did what the plan said over the ensuing years?
I think quite a bit of it was accomplished, yeah.
Wow.
That's why we're here.
Yeah. So,
Great job.
Which is great news. So, but I don't have the numbers on that yet, but I'm just sort of mapping and I'm going, oh yeah, this was taken care of, that was taken care of, and there's some things that didn't make sense, I think, in the plan, and ultimately that happens. But yeah, so that was, I think, a recommendation the committee was thinking about is to update that plan. So it's good to hear that there's
Right.
something possibly in the works to do that. So thank you for that. So.
Thank you, Mr. Delac.
I'll sit back down.
No, and not speaking for Director Stone, you know, one of the things that we really do need to be more effective in doing is making sure that we're getting the information out, and this will help do that to where here's the improvements that have been made. The thought that comes to mind right now for me is the fact that we have just created 33 acres of usable space right along the river and the bike path south of the community center, which it existed, but not as a space in which the public could actually use and enjoy. And again, I think that moving forward, we'll make a concerted effort to make sure that these do get pushed out there, that here's some improvement. So I love the fact that you've been doing that. I'm with Director Stone. You know, it's great hearing that we've actually accomplished what we set out to do with that plan, so thank you for bringing that up. You can retort,
So then, well, I was going to say that I do have something that's not on the agenda to talk about.
please.
Can I just continue that? Again, Rob Delac, 124 Morris Avenue, just representing myself, but just for your information, just yesterday, the Rail Trail Committee had a meeting for the first time since before the pandemic. So it's been over 2 years since we've met. What brought us together this time was that Vinton County is working on creating more rail trail and other trails in the county that would connect to other assets in the county, as well as potentially to Jackson and places like that. And they have a planning grant they've acquired to do that from ARC. They reached out to us because they were interested in trying to connect to Athens. So the Moonville, they did a great job of securing the funding for that, getting all that work done. They put 4 bridges along the Moonville Trail in Athens County. Not even really their job, right? But they took care of that for us, essentially. So it's all the way into Mineral now. You can access that trail, which is well into the county. But getting from there to Athens is something that there was a plan written by John Naus before he passed. So he passed about a year and a half ago now. And he did a lot of great work for trails here, as well as he helped found the Athens Conservancy. But one of the last things he did was published a report and updated it in 2019 that detailed what would have to happen to make the connections based on his current knowledge of landowners and who was willing to sell or not let the trail access their property. And so they're picking up that report, that is, they being Vinton County essentially, picking up that report and looking at the details. Rural Action is going to be doing some follow-up with property owners. So we're just sort of starting that process to look at the possibility for making that connection, which would come out at essentially Glory Road, which is right next to the Woda property. And during the initial discussion about that property in this meeting here a couple of years ago now, I mentioned this as a possibility. I had no idea it might happen sooner rather than later. I figured it was pie in the sky 10, 20 years from now. But so there may be possibilities to get a large grant to construct something like that, like what was done with Moonville. So we'll see. Just want to let you know that's going on, and probably be engaging with Orca, which Jesse Powers was included in the email traffic, at least on this, so she's aware of what was going on. So.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Mr. Delac. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Outdoor Recreation Council of Appalachia, because I think Orca would be a great partner in helping to make something like this
Yeah, I think so.
reach the terminus here in Athens. And, you know, it's interesting you should bring this up, because I just had a conversation yesterday with the city manager of Greenfield over in Highland County, also talking about the same types of things as, you know, the interconnectivity between communities using rail trails and things of that nature. So thank you. Yeah. Announcements and other business.
Speaking of Taro and Road and the bike path, there is a washout past Holzer. I don't know if we're aware of that, but where a lot of like mud and sediment settle. Just as a
The
heads
bikeway
up.
or
On the bike path.
beyond Holzer?
Beyond Holzer, yeah. And
I can comment about that.
go ahead, yeah, sure.
So, in my official capacity as secretary for the Hockock Indiana Bikeway Advisory Committee, which is a county committee, we've advised the county that that's an issue. It is county property or county responsibility out there, so that's their maintenance issue.
Gotcha.
And they are aware. I don't know if they've addressed it yet. I don't know when you saw it. Did you see it today or recently?
No, probably about 2 weeks ago I was running out that way and I had to stop because it
Yeah,
was
we just
nicer.
We just met last week, I think it was, and the report was that it hadn't been dealt with yet, so
Okay.
hopefully they'll get to that soon.
No, thanks. I didn't realize it was county, yeah.
All right. So announcements, our next meeting will be May 5th, to where we will bring forward what cases, if there's any pending cases. We certainly have the case or the communication from today that'll be on the agenda for May 5th. Other than that, can I get a motion to adjourn? Because I think we are done with business.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for joining.
So the